Well, Major Garrett is with us from Des Moines, Iowa. And here on the set is Leslie Sanchez. She's a CBSN political contributor and a Republican strategist. Now, we're going to talk about Trump's decision to boycott the debate. But first, I want to play something. An anti-Trump super PAC has just put out an ad in Iowa that slams the frontrunner for pulling out of the debate. Let's play some of it, and then I want to get your reaction, ladies and gentlemen.
Donald Trump is skipping the last debate before the Iowa caucuses. Why? Trump can't handle tough questions, like why he'd let millions of illegal immigrants stay in America and even supports a pathway to citizenship.
You have to give them a path, and you have to make it possible for them to succeed. You have to do that.
How do you throw somebody out that's lived in this country for 20 years? You just can't throw everybody out.
And why does Trump support amnesty? Maybe because Trump makes big money off illegal immigrants.
All right, Major Garrett, I want to get your take on this attack ad. What do you think?
Well, here's why it's important. For months, and I mean months, there has been a conversation that has largely gone nowhere in Republican circles about, is there a way to stop Trump? Is there poll-tested data about his past or things he said that can be used against him? And a lot of people in the consultant community put together a file of this information and looked for months for people to put some money behind an ad campaign that would try to take Trump down. Those conversations were largely circular and never went anywhere until about a week ago. And now this super PAC called Our Principles has some money behind it. They've said they're going to spend more than $1 million on advertisements, both television and digital, here in Iowa, and to likely Iowa caucus Republican attendees to try to drive this anti-Trump message. So it is a very late effort to try to bring up Trump's records, raise questions about his commitment to conservative principles, conservative points of view, in an effort to blunt his momentum here in Iowa. That is the significance of this ad. It's something that had been talked about for a long time, but has finally come to fruition. It may be too late, but it is certainly now part of the Iowa conversation, and it could change the dynamic on Monday, in addition to everything else. So it is significant in that respect. Will it be enough? Who knows? But now there is at least some effort among Republicans to try to take Trump down. This ad and one that came out yesterday from the same super PAC is part of that process.
So, Leslie, this is a criticism we've heard before, that he's not a real conservative, and it hasn't really had a lot of impact. Do you think, like Major Garrett does, that at least it's going to start a conversation at a very crucial time?
It really does, because you have to get past that kind of culture bubble, the celebrity bubble, and as much as you, and I'm sure Major Garrett sees that, you talk to folks on the ground and they're like, that you hear and you counter the arguments about he's really not a true conservative, and they go, but he's likable. He's so extremely likable that they give it a pass, and until they really start looking at the issues and get serious about it, I think his momentum keeps building. And there is a lot of talk in inner circles. If you do not slow him down as he's getting into New Hampshire and he's really rolling into South Carolina, they really think he could be unstoppable. So you're seeing finally an orchestrated effort among conservatives, and to the extent some establishment consultants and certainly candidates who are looking and seizing this opportunity.
Major, Trump is now saying he will definitely skip tonight's Fox News debate. How risky is this move in terms of Iowa on Monday and beyond? And how wise is it to pick a fight with Fox News Channel? A lot of the people who support Trump are loyal viewers.
So there's a lot of elements to this story. Let me try to go through them one at a time. First of all, to the question about taking on Fox. One of the things that Donald Trump wants to do and has largely succeeded in this campaign in doing is breaking all of the established rules. And one of the established rules, if you're a Republican, is you deal with Fox, you have conversations with Fox and its audience, and you are part of a larger conversation on that network that is disproportionately larger than any other cable outlet. Well, for Trump is now saying, you know what? I'm bigger than Fox. And his supporters are drawn to the idea that Trump is bigger than the existing rules, bigger than the process that they've grown either tired of or frustrated with. That's one component of it. Now, is this risky? Yes, it certainly is. But it also feeds into one thing that Trump talked a lot about last night in South Carolina, which is, hey, I wrote the art of the deal. I'm a negotiator. I think I'm being treated unfairly, so I'm driving a hard bargain. One of the things he tells his supporters, and I hear this when I talk to Trump backers all across the country, they like the idea that he will take on a system and they believe he can negotiate a better deal for them because they're frustrated with Washington, they're frustrated with where the direction of the country is heading, and they believe Trump can advocate for them if he becomes president of the United States. So from that strategic point of view, it reinforces a longstanding Trump narrative. That's a plus. On the negative side, here in Iowa, Iowans take this process very seriously, and they appreciate and they demand of candidates participation in the way this process has always been carried out. Skipping the final debate, skipping the chance to give Iowans your closing argument is risky. It could depress turnout. It could create openings for other candidates who are vying for attention and caucus turnout who are not named Donald Trump. One other thing I would say, there is kind of a conversation going on here in Iowa that's kind of a double bank shot, if you will, and think in billiards terms. And it goes like this. Maybe Trump doesn't think he can win in Iowa. He doesn't have the ground game to win. And so maybe this is a ploy, an escape hatch, if you will, to explain away a loss he might think is coming anyway and say, you know what, that whole controversy over the debate, I wasn't there, I did something else, I stuck to my principles, we didn't win in Iowa, but I stuck to my guns, and now we'll go on to New Hampshire and South Carolina. Like I said, that is kind of a double bank shot conversation. People are trying to sift this at so many different levels. Who knows exactly where this lands, but it is a risk, and it also plays into a Trump narrative, so you have both sides of that equation.
Yeah, trying to figure out whether it's Trump being scared, as some of the candidates have suggested, or whether there's some real strategy here. We could talk forever about that, but as it stands right now, he's not going to be at the debate, Leslie. What sort of debate are we going to see? Because the previous debates have been Trump versus Cruz and everyone else duking it out. What kind of debate do you think this will be without him?
I think very much it becomes a Ted Cruz show. I mean, you're already seeing that he's lining that up. He's also been making the argument that any vote for anybody other than himself is a vote for is not a vote for a good conservative. What's interesting about it is this plays exactly into Ted Cruz's wheelhouse. He really strategically won his race to U.S. Senate because he had a candidate who did not show up at a series of debates that he had in almost every precinct in Texas, and he would put an empty chair and just talk to the empty chair for an hour. It very much played to the audience, and it really showed a sense of disrespect. That's the contrast it shows. When you have a candidate who doesn't show up, it solidifies that he didn't respect the voters enough to make himself aware, present, and really make his argument. And it does really work to the candidates on the stage's favor.
All right, Leslie Sanchez, thank you very much. And Major Garrett, thanks a lot. For full coverage of the GOP debate, you want to watch CBSN. We'll have all the highlights for you, plus extensive pre and post debate analysis. That is tonight starting at 7 Eastern.